My name's Peter Pashley. I'm the tech director here at Ustwo Games. We're working on Land's End, which is a game exclusively for Samsung Gear VR, which is a VR adventure set in this kind of Neolithic, mysterious landscape that we hope that you can explore and enjoy, and have something of the magic of VR brought to you straight on your mobile VR device. The obvious approach is to teleport around, but we felt that just didn't have the feel of personal exploration. It felt like you were just being shown a series of snapshots and not really exploring it yourself. And also it can cause disorientation. You kind of lose your sense of direction and place. So we really wanted to be able to move people around without breaking that up, without teleporting. And yeah, there's a lot of things out there about the best ways of doing it, but we found that you have to move slowly to avoid people feeling sick, and also not accelerate. Acceleration is very bad for that. But there's also, so the perfect thing is supposedly just to travel in a constant speed at a straight line, but if you do that, it feels totally unnatural. So we've got a bit of acceleration in there that's been tuned over 2 or 3 months to get to a period where to a point where it felt good, where it felt like an enjoyable experience for people who weren't motion sensitive, but also people who are motion sensitive can use it and not want to vomit at the end of every session. I mean, there's 2 reasons why we wanted to go hands-free. One is that, as you said, we want Land's End to be the kind of game that people use to introduce VR to people who've never seen it before. We want people just to be able to put it on their heads and enjoy it. And that's always been our approach as a studio, that we want to make things that are accessible to people immediately. We want people to be able to pick it up and immediately be able to enjoy playing with it. So that immediate accessibility of hands-free is very appealing, and we don't want to limit our being able to enjoy our game to people who can use a controller just by touch. And especially with mobile VR, it might not even be that familiar a controller, so we really didn't want to use a controller. And we find that using the touchpad on the side of the Gear VR is something that can be quite tiring for a prolonged period of time. And also, and this I think is the most important thing, it takes you out of the experience. Touching any lump of plastic reminds you that your physical body is in the real world and what you're seeing isn't real. And what we wanted to do was enable people to get totally lost in it, totally immersed in it, and doing nothing but look around and interact just with your sight, which is the thing that does actually exist in this virtual world. Lets you do that. People stop thinking entirely about the real world and get totally immersed, and that's exactly what we were going for. Part of what's amazing about VR is people feeling feelings that they would feel in real life. Like if we put somebody in an environment where there was a big cliff, most people in real life would go and consider looking over the edge of the cliff. They would want to do that. So if we put a cliff in an environment but don't allow you to go and look over the edge, then what's the point of being in that environment? And then that sense of vertigo, again, that's something that we want people to recognise. We want people to be like, oh my god, I can't believe I felt that feeling of vertigo just like I would do in real life, because it heightens that feeling of immersion in the world, and of amazement, and of kind of emotions or feelings that you can't evoke with normal computer games. So that's one reason. And yeah, the ups and downs is the other reason. You've got to be able to have those moments which juxtapose with relaxing. If it's just all relaxing all the time, we don't want people falling asleep. We want some highs and lows. And it is amazing that people do feel vertigo, and we get people who are real sufferers in real life who actually have to force themselves to keep their headset on, which sometimes we've wondered maybe that's too much, but I think if you're getting the kind of emotions of people that you would do if you put them in this environment in real life, then we're succeeding at that that goal of putting this headset on and being in a different place. Yeah, so our puzzles, well, all of our interaction design for everything we do is based around the device on which you're going to be using it. We don't want to try and shoehorn a mechanic in just because we like it. We want to do something that is the best possible fit for that device. So with Monument Valley, we tried to find interactions that worked really well on touchscreen, and ideally were things that you would never see or wouldn't be able to do without a touchscreen. And with VR, we took the same approach, that we wanted to find ways of interacting with this world which you could only do in VR. And that took quite a long time to get right, because things that you think are going to be really amazing quite often don't pan out, aren't as amazing as you think they're going to be, or there's other problems with them. And we've spent a long time getting to where we are now with especially with the puzzle design. We've spent, I don't know, we've thrown away everything in the game 4 or 5 times to get to the current version of the gameplay mechanics and level design and that kind of thing. So it's been a long process, but we think that what we've come up with are two main mechanics that really are very well suited to VR. So the first one is what we call star lines. So it's a puzzle mechanic where you have to join these stars in the environment up with a line without crossing the line or duplicate, like doubling back on yourself or anything. And that is kind of based off the observation that what hands-free VR is good at is looking around and looking at the environment. And actually the simplest way to do that is just having look here, look here, look here. But actually we were amazed when we came up with it at how natural it feels and how easy it is to complete a puzzle in this mode. And we've sometimes joked that we should have just thrown away the main game and just done a puzzle game like that, because it is so easy to do these puzzles that you don't get that that barrier that you normally or can get with puzzle games, where it's actually a chore to do the mechanics of trying out a solution for the puzzle. It's so quick to do that it just feels enjoyable, and if you mess it up, it's so easy to try again. So that's one, and the other one is the way that you move things around in this world. So we don't really have a word for it, but it's kind of like a telekinesis. We want people to feel like they're moving these big blocks with the power of their mind. We want it almost to be like the Force. And that was kind of a desire for a long time, and we went through a lot of different ways of doing that. And eventually we kind of figured out that what's best about it is player agency, the ability to move things freely about this world, rather than doing things like Monument Valley, where movements are quite prescriptive. You can only move this block up and down in segments, or you can only rotate 45 degrees or whatever. We wanted to make it so that you felt like you, the player, were directly deciding where this thing was going to go. So when we got to the current mechanic, which is kind of physics-based, you're dragging this thing around with your mind and being able to smash it against other rocks or pile things up on top of each other. Scale's interesting in VR because, in spite of the fact that you can see in 3D, you have depth perception, it's hard to do anything really huge that takes up your whole field of view, because if it takes up your whole field of view, you no longer have your reference point for what is still, and you start to believe that you're moving. So that is another thing that we've struggled with or iterated on a lot in this game, is that our initial thoughts were things like, oh, well, you'll be able to lift a whole mountain up. But if you lift a whole mountain up and that fills your field of view, then people start to feel motion sick. So you could lift a whole mountain up if it was really far away. So there is a large variation in scale of the things that you move in this world, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's an interesting point, that the kind of thing that you think is going to be awesome, like I want to be underneath this moon that I'm holding up or whatever, things like that can turn out to just not work in VR. So it's a good example of why you just have to keep iterating. Like, if something sounds like a great idea and you try it and it doesn't work, then figure out why it didn't work and figure out what other cool stuff you can do that does work. I think it will be fairly similar to Monument Valley in terms of length. So there are 5 chapters in the game, and they kind of increase in scope and scale, but we don't have a strong difficulty curve. It's similar to Monument Valley in that we want people to get through this. We want people to enjoy themselves. We want them to explore the worlds that we've given them. So we don't want people to get stuck for 10 minutes in one puzzle. We want them to feel happy and fulfilled and clever that they've done this puzzle. And it's, as always, a difficult balancing act, and you'll get some people who can go through it straight away and other people who might take longer, but we think we've got the balance about right. So, well, I suppose we announced the game without a release date a long time ago. We announced it at Oculus Connect last year, and it's been through a lot of iteration since then. So we wanted to make sure that people knew for sure that it was going to be coming out soon when we started talking about it again. And I guess it's kind of standard practice for us to have a release date for our games. We want people to know when they're going to be available when we're talking about them. I can't speak for other developers not talking about release dates. I suspect, especially on Gear VR, it's down to the fact that most of the stuff that's come out so far is relatively low budget, and maybe they don't have the same kind of or very much marketing thought put into it. We've got a lot of people who love Monument Valley and are excited about what we do next, so we want to be kind of clear and make sure that people understand what we're doing and what's going on and when it's going to happen. So yeah, October the 30th is our release date, and we think it fits quite well because so the consumer version of the Gear VR will be available for will actually be available for people to have at the end of November, and it will be available for pre-order before that. So we aren't waiting for the full release of the consumer version, partly because the innovator editions are already out there and people will be able to download it and play it on day one. So we wanted to make sure that we're not holding back. We don't want to spite those people who've been early adopters, and also we think that it is a medium that those early adopters are at the moment are a really important part of it, and people who buy Gear VRs are going to do so because they've seen it in store or seen a friend's version of it. So in terms of release, it makes a lot of sense to release it to those people who are going to be telling other people about it.